The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the sodium lamps like veins pulsing with the city's restless heartbeat. And that's when I heard the shatter. Glass exploding against the brick wall of our apartment building, followed by Jake's roar that cut through the night sharper than any knife. You think you can just walk away after that bullshit? After everything? His voice cracked like thunder, raw and unfiltered. The kind of sound that strips a man bare and leaves him howling at the moon. I froze in the doorway, my keys dangling uselessly from my numb fingers, heart slamming against my ribs as if it knew what was coming next. The truth I'd buried deeper than my own goddamn shadow. It was the summer of my junior year at the University of Washington. That sticky stretch between semesters when the Pacific Northwest pretends it's alive with possibility. Long days bleeding into longer nights, the air thick with salt from the sound and the faint, acrid tang of wildfires drifting down from Canada. I'd sublet a cramped two-bedroom in Capitol Hill with Jake Harlan, my roommate of 2 years, a straight-arrow kinesiology major with shoulders like a linebacker and a laugh that could disarm a room full of skeptics. We weren't best friends, not exactly. More like reluctant allies forged in the fire of shared misery. Late-night cram sessions fueled by cheap IPAs, griping about professors who graded like they had personal vendettas, and the occasional pickup basketball game where I'd fake enthusiasm just to watch him dominate the court. Jake was the epitome of easy masculinity. Faded Husky's tees stretched across his chest, a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, and that effortless charm that made girls, and hell, a few guys, blush without him even trying. Me, Alex Rivera, theater arts minor with a penchant for brooding monologues, and a family back in Tacoma that treated coming out like it was synonymous with committing arson. I was the quiet one, the observer, sketching character studies in my notebook while he blasted Springsteen from his Bluetooth speaker. That night started innocently enough, or as innocent as a Friday in July gets when you're 21 and invincible. We'd planned a low-key barbecue on the fire escape, burgers sizzling on a rusty Weber, condensation beating on bottles of Rainier, the distant hum of traffic on Broadway like a lullaby for the lost. But Jake had been off all week, pacing our living room like a caged wolf, snapping at his phone every time it buzzed. His girlfriend, Mia, blonde, bubbly sorority type with a laugh like wind chimes, had been ghosting him, or so he said. She's probably buried in some internship bullshit, he'd mutter. But his eyes told a different story, hollowed out and hunted. I didn't pry. Prying was for people who had their own lives sorted, not for someone like me, who spent evenings scrolling Grindr in incognito mode, thumb hovering over profiles that promised connection but delivered ghosts. By dusk, the sky had cracked open, dumping sheets of rain that turned our fire escape into a slip and slide. We retreated inside, dripping and cursing, Jake kicking off his sneakers with more force than necessary. "Fuck this weather," he growled, cracking open another beer and collapsing onto the sagging couch. I nodded, toweling my hair, stealing glances at the way his wet shirt clung to his torso, outlining the ridges of muscle I'd pretended not to notice 100 times before. It was a habit, that glancing, harmless, I told myself, like appreciating a sunset or a well-crafted latte art. But tonight, with the storm raging outside and the power flickering like it was in on the conspiracy, harmless felt like a lie I couldn't swallow anymore. We ordered pizza, extra pepperoni because why not drown regret in grease, and flipped on the Mariners game, but neither of us was watching. Jake's phone lit up again, and this time he didn't ignore it. He snatched it up, jaw tightening as he read the screen. "It's her," he said, voice flat. Finally. I watched him type, delete, type again, his thumbs stabbing the glass like it owed him money. When he finally hit send, he hurled the phone across the room. It bounced off the armrest and skidded under the coffee table, screen still glowing with the unsent venom of a breakup text he'd chickened out on. "You want to talk about it?" I ventured, hating how small my voice sounded, like a kid asking for permission to pee during a movie. He barked a laugh, bitter and brittle. "Talk? What's there to say, Alex? 3 years down the drain because she decides she's exploring her options. Exploring. Like I'm some fucking side quest in her life." He raked a hand through his damp hair, leaving it spiked like he'd just rolled out of a fight. "And the worst part? I knew. Deep down, I fucking knew she was seeing that prick from her poli-sci class. The one with the man bun and the trust fund. But I stayed quiet because I thought love was supposed to be blind or some Hallmark crap. The word love hung in the air between us, heavy as the humidity, and something in me twisted. A sharp, secret ache I'd named a long time ago but never voiced. Love. What did I know about it? Flirtations in dark bars that fizzled by morning, crushes on unavailable co-stars that ended in awkward hugs. And Jake. God, Jake. Who'd crash on my bed after nightmares about his deployed dad, mumbling apologies in his sleep, his breath warm against my neck. I'd lie there awake, statue still, cataloging the rhythm of his snores like it was poetry. Love's not blind, I said softly, surprising myself. It's just selective. Sees what it wants to see until it can't anymore. He turned to me then, blue eyes piercing in the lamplight, searching my face like I'd handed him a map to buried treasure. Yeah? And what do you see, Rivera? When you look at this mess? The question landed like a dare, and in that suspended heartbeat, with thunder rumbling overhead and the pizza cooling untouched on the counter, I saw everything. The freckles dusting his nose from too many summers on the diamond, the scar on his knuckle from punching a locker after a lost game, the vulnerability cracking through his armor like fault lines in granite. I saw me, too curled in on myself, a half-written script of a life I was too scared to stage. I see a guy who's better than he thinks, I murmured, the words slipping out unbidden. And a friend who's always had his back, even when it hurts. Jake held my gaze, the room shrinking around us until it was just his breath, mine, the storm's symphony outside. Then, slowly, he reached out, clapping a hand on my shoulder. Firm, grounding, electric. You're all right, you know that? In a world full of assholes, you're real. That touch lingered, his palm warm through my shirt, and for a reckless second, I imagined leaning in, closing the gap, tasting the salt of rain on his lips. But I couldn't. Instead, I forced a grin, clinking my bottle against his. To real, I toasted, and we drank, the bitter fizz chasing away the almost. Hours blurred into a haze of stories swapped like contraband. His tales of small-town Idaho, sneaking beers behind the grain silo with buddies who'd later ghost him when he came back too liberal from college. Mine of Tacoma Christmases where dad's silences spoke louder than sermons, mom's forced smiles papering over the cracks. The power cut out around midnight, plunging us into candlelit intimacy, shadows dancing on the walls like extras in our private drama. Jake lit the stubs from the junk drawer, their flames guttering in the draft, casting his face in golden relief. Truth or dare? He slurred suddenly, the game bubbling up from some forgotten college party playbook, his grin lopsided and challenging. My pulse stuttered. Truth. Always truth. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, the candlelight carving hollows under his cheekbones. What's the one thing you've never told anyone? Not Mia, not your exes, anyone. The air thickened, charged like the moments before lightning strikes. I could lie, spin some yarn about shoplifting comics or hating pineapple on pizza, but the weight of his stare pinned me, demanding honesty. My throat closed around the confession, years of rehearsal in the mirror flashing by. The first boy in high school who'd kissed me behind the bleachers and then called me a freak. The grinder hookups that left me emptier than before. The nights I'd cried myself to sleep, whispering prayers to a god who seemed deaf to queers. You, I whispered finally, the word fracturing. It's you, Jake. I've been in love with you since freshman orientation. Not the loud, beer-chugging version, the real one. The guy who remembers my coffee order when I'm having a shit day. The one who makes the city feel like home. Silence crashed down, heavier than the rain. His face, shock, then something softer, unreadable, froze in the flickering light. I braced for the recoil, the polite rejection, the end of everything. But Jake didn't pull away. He just exhaled, long and shaky, like he'd been holding his breath for years. Alex, he said, voice rough as gravel. And that's when the door buzzer screamed. shattering the moment like that glass against the wall earlier. Mia. Of course it was Mia. Timing impeccable as a Greek tragedy, here to collect her things or drop the final bomb. Jake surged to his feet, face hardening into a mask I'd seen too many times. The warrior gearing for battle. "Stay here," he muttered, but I followed anyway, drawn like a moth to the flame of whatever implosion awaited. She stood in the hallway, soaked to the bone, mascara streaking like war paint, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. "Jake, we need to talk," she started. But he cut her off with a slash of his hand. "No, you don't get to talk after radio silence and whispers with that douchebag. Pack your shit and go." Her eyes darted past him, landing on me, wary, calculating. "This your fault? Stirring up drama because you're jealous?" The accusation hit like a sucker punch, but before I could sputter, Jake stepped between us, a human shield. "Leave him out of it. This is on you, Mia. Always has been." She laughed, sharp and wounded. "Oh, please, like you haven't been playing house with your best bud here. Everyone sees it, the way you two huddle like conspirators. It's pathetic." And with that, she shoved past, dumping the bag at his feet. Clothes spilling out like entrails, a lacy bra landing accusingly on my shoe. The door slammed behind her, echoing like a guillotine. Jake sank against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the threadbare carpet, head in hands. I joined him, our shoulders brushing, the proximity a lifeline in the wreckage. "I'm sorry," I whispered, the confession's aftershocks still trembling through me. "For everything." He lifted his head, eyes red-rimmed but steady. "Don't be. Truth hurts. But lies? They kill slow." Then quieter. "I had no idea, man. None. But I'm glad you said it. Means I wasn't crazy." Thinking we clicked in ways I couldn't explain. We sat there till dawn crept in, gray light filtering through the blinds, the storm spent. No kisses, no grand gestures. Just two guys piecing together the shards of a night that changed the script forever. Little did I know, the real drama was just beginning. Betrayals waiting in the wings, conflicts that would test every bond I'd ever forged. But in that fragile morning hush, with Jake's arms slung casual around my shoulders, I dared to hope that support came in the unlikeliest packages. The days after that confessional monsoon blurred into a tentative normalcy, like tiptoeing across a frozen lake you know might crack any second. Jake didn't bolt, didn't slap a straight-only label on our friendship and call it done. Instead, he doubled down, dragging me to morning runs along the Burke-Gilman Trail, where the fog clung to the evergreens like secrets, and we'd pound pavement until our lungs burned clean. "Gotta sweat out the bullshit," he'd say, clapping my back with that easy affection that now carried an undercurrent, electric and unspoken. I'd nod, grateful for the burn, for the way it drowned out the what-ifs swirling in my head. What if he pitied me? What if this was just his way of letting me down gentle, like a bad biopsy wrapped in cotton? Campus buzzed back to life mid-July, summer sessions kicking off with a vengeance. My advanced scene study class dissecting Tennessee Williams under fluorescent lights that hummed like judgmental bees, Jake grinding through anatomy labs where cadavers stared sightless from steel tables. We fell into a rhythm, shared grocery runs to the Capitol Hill QFC, where he'd toss kale into the cart, health kick, bro, no more pizza purgatory, and I'd sneak in bags of sour gummy worms as rebellion. Evenings were for the apartment's ritual decompression. Him sprawled on the couch with kinesiology textbooks propped on his knees, me at the kitchen table scribbling dialogue for a one-act about fractured families that felt too close to autobiography. But Mia's ghost lingered, a specter in the periphery. Her stuff had vanished overnight. Poof, like she'd been a figment. But her barbs echoed. Pathetic, she'd called us, and damn if that didn't fester. I caught Jake staring at his phone sometimes, thumb hovering over her contact like he was defusing a bomb. One night, after a particularly grueling rehearsal where my director eviscerated my Chekhov accent, "Darling, you're emoting like a wounded puppy. Channel the despair, not the whine." I came home to find him hunched over a half-empty six-pack, the Mariners game muted on TV. "Rough day?" I asked, dropping my backpack by the door. He shrugged, cracking a wry smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just replaying the greatest hits. Mia edition. I slid onto the couch beside him, careful not to crowd, though every fiber screamed to bridge the gap. Want the director's cut? Or the blooper reel? He chuckled, low and genuine, the sound uncoiling something tight in my chest. Blooper. Always the blooper. So I obliged, launching into tales of my theater misadventures. The time I'd flubbed a soliloquy and moonwalked off stage to salvage it, drawing laughs instead of boos. The improv night where a prop sword malfunctioned, jabbing me in the thigh mid-duel. Jake leaned in, beer forgotten. His laughter building like a wave until tears crinkled the corners of his eyes. You're a goddamn enigma, Rivera, he said when the stories tapered. 1 minute you're quoting Ibsen like it's small talk, the next you're pulling ninja moves on a budget. How do you do it? Stay so. Unapologetically you. The question ambushed me, vulnerability wrapped in flattery. I toyed with the label on my bottle, condensation slick under my fingers. Practice. And a healthy dose of fuck it. Theater teaches you that life's one long rehearsal, and the audience is forgiving if you're bold. He nodded slowly, gaze drifting to the window where city lights smeared the dusk. Wish I had that. Bold. Dad always said Harlan men don't bend. They break clean. But bending, that's where the real strength is, right? His voice trailed, laced with the weight of unspoken histories. His father, Sergeant Harlan, lost to an IED in Kandahar when Jake was 16, leaving behind dog tags and a legacy of stoicism that bordered on stonewalling. Jake had shouldered it all. Little brother to raise, mom to prop up, scholarships to chase. No wonder he armored himself in bravado. Vulnerability was a luxury for civilians. You're bending plenty, I said quietly. Coming out of that Mia storm in one piece? That's steel, man. He turned to me, expression softening into something raw, unguarded. Couldn't have without you. That night, your truth, it was a mirror, made me see my own cracks. Our knees brushed, accidental but charged, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that point of contact. Warmth seeping through denim, a promise unspoken. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the spell. A text from his mom, innocuous check-in about his summer internship application. He groaned, typing back with exaggerated flair. Duty calls. Rural Idaho wants their golden boy back for harvest season. Apparently. The mention of home twisted something in me. Tacoma's shadow looming. My own fractured family a phone call away. Dad, the auto mechanic with calluses like regrets, who'd once caught me with a dog-eared copy of Giovanni's Room and muttered, "That shit'll rot your brain, son." Mom, the elementary teacher who baked apology casseroles but never addressed the elephant in the living room. Her boy's unspoken queerness. I hadn't visited since winter break, the silence between calls growing arctic. You ever think about going back? Jake asked, pocketing his phone. Facing the folks on your terms? All the time, I admitted. But terms feel like landmines. One wrong step. He clapped my thigh, brotherly, reassuring. Then we stepped together. Road trip? After finals. Your turf, my navigation. Deal? The offer landed light as a feather, heavy as hope. Deal. Emboldened, we pivoted to lighter ground, plotting the itinerary like generals. Detours to Olympic National Park for hikes that promised manly bonding. His words, hole-in-the-wall diners for pie that tastes like freedom, mine. By bedtime, the apartment thrummed with possibility. Jake crashing early with a fist bump and a night partner in crime, leaving me adrift in the kitchen, replaying the evening like a highlight reel. But normalcy, as it does in stories worth telling, is just the setup for the storm. It hit a week later, innocuous as a campus email. The annual Pride Week kickoff. A block party on the quad with drag shows, food trucks, and ally booths that promised safe spaces in rainbow fonts. I'd volunteered last year, manning a literature table with zines on queer icons, Walt Whitman to Audre Lorde. But this time, nerves jangled like loose change. Jake had caught wind, cornering me post-run with that trademark grin. Pride, huh? Count me in. Straight ally reporting for duty. My stomach flipped, equal parts thrill and terror. You sure? Loud. Unapologetic. Perfect, he shot back. Time I got louder about the stuff that matters. The event dawned crisp and clear. Seattle's summer sun a rare gift, gilding the quad in honeyed light. Booths bloomed like wildflowers. Face-painting stations turning cheeks into chimeric flags. Info tables stacked with condoms and consent cards. A stage where a queen in sequined glory lip-synced to Chapel Roan. I manned my post, handing out flyers for the theater department's upcoming Queer Stages showcase. Fielding questions from curious freshmen with the poise of someone who'd rehearsed this role 1,000 times in the mirror. Jake arrived fashionably late, sauntering up in a white tee scrawled with "Love is Love" in Sharpie. His handiwork. He'd confessed sheepishly over breakfast. Cargo shorts, and that effortless swagger that parted crowds like Moses at the Red Sea. Heads turned, some admiring, some appraising. And I felt a surge of pride, irrational and fierce, like he'd chosen me in a room full of options. Reporting for duty, sir, he saluted, snagging a stack of flyers. What's the mission? We tag-teamed the afternoon, him charming clusters of undergrads with anecdotes about straight guy fails. Like the time he'd butchered a RuPaul quote at a frat party. Me weaving in resources with the gravity of gospel. Laughter flowed easy, the sun baking our shoulders, and for stolen moments, our eyes would lock over a shared joke, a silent high-five in the chaos. Then betrayal slithered in, uninvited as a snake in Eden. Mia. She'd materialized near the stage, arm looped through man-bun pricks. Real name Ethan, apparently, a poli-sci TA with a smug grin and a man-purse that screamed, I read Foucault ironically. She spotted us across the quad, her gaze narrowing like a lens zooming in on prey. I tensed, but Jake just waved, casual as you please. Hey, no drama, he murmured. Water under the bridge. But bridges burn and Mia had matches. She sauntered over during a lull, Ethan trailing like a remora, her sundress fluttering like a white flag of false surrender. Jake, Alex, didn't expect the bromance brigade at Pride. Slumming it with the alphabet mafia? Her tone dripped venom, sweet as saccharin, and Ethan's chuckle grated like sandpaper. Jake stiffened beside me, but before he could retort, Mia leaned in, voice a conspiratorial hiss pitched just for us. Careful, boys. Wouldn't want rumors starting. You know how Capitol Hill talks. Roommates who get a little too cozy after lights out? Sounds like a bad rom-com. The quad's din faded to a roar in my ears, blood pounding hot and humiliated. Faces nearby turned, whispers rippling like aftershocks. Jake's jaw clenched, a muscle ticking like a countdown. Back off, Mia. You're projecting your own mess. Oh, honey, she purred, eyes flicking to me with predatory glee. I'm just stating facts. Ask Ethan. He's heard all about your little truth night. From me, of course. Thought you'd appreciate the heads up. The revelation hit like a gut punch. She'd eavesdropped? Or worse, pieced it from Jake's drunken vents? Betrayal bloomed, bitter on my tongue. Not just hers, but the casual cruelty of weaponizing vulnerability. Ethan smirked, oblivious or uncaring, and Mia tugged him away, tossing over her shoulder. Enjoy the parade. Wouldn't want to cramp your style. They melted into the crowd, leaving shrapnel in their wake. Jake whirled on me, face ashen. Alex, I swear. I never. I know. I cut in, voice steady by miracle. But inside, fracture spiderwebbed. Trust, once budding, now teetering. The afternoon soured. I excused myself early, claiming a migraine, fleeing to the apartment where rain had returned, pattering against the windows like accusatory fingers. Jake followed an hour later, drenched and determined, bursting through the door with takeout tie and an apology etched in every line of his frame. She cornered me last week, fishing for dirt. I shut her down, told her to fuck off. But if she twisted it, God, I'm sorry. I waved it off, curling into the armchair with a blanket cocoon, the weight of exposure pressing like an anvil. It's not you, it's the world, reminding me I'm always one slip from the cliff. He knelt before me, hands on the armrests, caging me in concern. Then we'll build a net. Together. No slips, no cliffs. Just us, holding the line. His words, fervent and fierce, mended a shard. We ate cross-legged on the floor, pad thai steaming between us, trading stories of survival. His first post-dad bar fight, defending his mom's honor against small-town gossip. My high school coming out fumble to a single friend who became my anchor. Vulnerability flowed, cathartic as confession. And by night's end, with the rain easing to a drizzle, Jake pulled me into a hug, bone-crushing, brotherly, but laced with the unspoken depth of chosen family. Yet the conflict simmered, Mia's poison seeping into cracks I hadn't known existed. Whispers followed me on campus. Sidelong glances in the cafeteria. A theater classmate's hesitant, "Heard about you and Jake. Wild, right?" Paranoia bloomed, a weed in the garden of our fragile peace. And as August loomed, with the road trip beckoning like a siren's call, I wondered if truth could withstand the tempests ahead, or if it would drown us both. August arrived like a fever dream, the kind where sweat-soaked sheets tangle around you and reality frays at the edges. The road trip to Tacoma was Jake's idea crystallized. 3 days, 2 nights, a battered Ford Escape loaded with playlists. His classic rock anthems, mine. Indie folk ballads that made him roll his eyes but hum along anyway, and enough beef jerky to sustain a zombie apocalypse. We'd mapped it loose. I-5 south to the peninsula, veering west for Hoh Rainforest's emerald cathedrals, then doubling back for my family's doorstep. No pressure, Jake insisted over pre-trip pancakes at a greasy spoon on Pike Street. If it's too much, we bail to the nearest beach and build sand forts like idiots. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed like termites in drywall. Mia's ambush at Pride had left bruises. Invisible, insidious, coloring every interaction with suspicion. Texts from mutual friends turned cryptic, "Heard some tea, call me?" And in rehearsals, my lines emerged halting, as if the stage lights conspired to expose me. Jake noticed, of course, his radar for emotional static finer than any weatherman's. "Eyes on the horizon," he'd say, bumping my shoulder during our now-daily trail runs. The Salish Sea glittering to our left like shattered promises. Tacoma's just a pit stop. The real adventure's the drive. We hit the road at dawn, Seattle's skyline shrinking in the rearview like a discarded sketch. Jake drove first, windows cracked to let in the briny breeze, Springsteen crooning Thunder Road from the speakers. Conversation flowed easy at first, debating the merits of diner hash browns versus home fries, ranking every Marvel movie in escalating absurdity. But as the miles ticked, Tacoma's gravity tugged, pulling confessions from me like threads from a fraying hem. "You ever feel like you're performing?" I asked around Ellensburg, the Cascades rising rugged and indifferent on either side. Like, every conversation's an audition, and one wrong line tanks the whole gig? Jake glanced over, aviators perched on his nose, a half-eaten Slim Jim dangling from his lips. All the time, especially with Dad's ghost breathing down my neck. Be a man, Jake. Stoic, strong, silent. But silent, that shit's a cage. Better to yell and be wrong than whisper and rot. His candor disarmed me, as always, peeling back my own layers. My family's the opposite loud silences. Dad quotes Bible verses like ammo. Mom deflects with potlucks. Last time I visited, I almost told them. Over turkey tetrazzini, no less. But the words stuck, like they were barbed wire. He reached over, squeezing my knee brief, bolstering. This time, no barbs. Or if there are, I'll be the clippers. The Hoh Rainforest swallowed us whole that afternoon. A verdant labyrinth where ferns carpeted the forest floor like nature's own shag rug. Moss-draped maples twisting heavenward in silent supplication. We hiked the Hall of Moss's trail, air thick with the scent of damp earth and eternity. Sunlight piercing the canopy in God rays that dappled Jake's face like stage lighting. He hooped at a nurse log teeming with saplings. "Life from death, man. That's poetry." And I snapped a photo, candid and unguarded, his grin splitting the frame like dawn. Deeper in, by a babbling creek where salmon flashed silver in the shallows. The trail emptied, leaving us alone with the wilderness's whisper. Jake stripped off his shirt to wade, scars from childhood scrapes etching stories across his back. A roadmap of resilience. "Come on, Rivera, water's fine," he called, splashing like a kid, droplets arcing rainbow in the light. I hesitated, self-conscious in my skin, but his laughter pulled me in. We dunked each other, the cold shock stealing breath, emerging gasping and giddy, collapsing on a sun-warmed rock to dry. Side by side, shirts off, the proximity hummed. His shoulder brushing mine, the rise and fall of his chest syncing with the brook's rhythm. "This," he said, gesturing to the emerald expanse. "This is what living feels like. No scripts, no spotlights, just being." Emboldened, I turned to him, heart hammering a tattoo against my ribs. "Jake, about that night, the truth I dropped like a bomb. It wasn't just drunk talk. It's real. Has been. And I get if it's weird, if you need space or—" "Whoa, slow your roll." He sat up, facing me fully, water beating on his lashes like tears. "Weird? Nah. Surprising? Hell yeah. But Alex, you're not a phase or a footnote. You're the guy who sees through my bullshit, calls me on it without judgment. That's rarer than a mariner's pennant." He paused, scrubbing a hand over his jaw, vulnerability etching lines around his mouth. "Truth? I've questioned stuff too. Not labels, I'm wired straight, I think, but the walls we build. With you, they crumble. Feels like safety. Like I can be the mess without apology." The admission hung, profound and platonic, a cornerstone in our evolving foundation. No romance novel fade to black, just two souls aligning in the wild, forging alliance from honesty. We hiked out lighter, the forest's hush a benediction, stopping for clam chowder and Forks. Yes, that Forks, where we geeked over Twilight lore until our sides ached. Night 1. A roadside motel off Highway 101. Neon sign buzzing vacancy, like a weary heartbeat. Single room, 2 queens, practicality over propriety. We crashed post-shower, Jake in boxers and a threadbare tee, me in sweats, the space between beds a no-man's land of carpet. TV droned a true crime doc, but sleep evaded, the day's confessions fermenting. "Can't shut it off?" he murmured from the dark. "Nope. Brain's a hamster wheel." He flipped on the lamp, casting amber pools. "Then spill." "What's the wheel spinning?" Everything poured out then. The fear of Tacoma's judgment, Mia's echo chamber of cruelty. The theater showcase looming like a guillotine, my queer-themed piece. Echoes in the attic, a semi-autobiographical gut punch. Jake listened, chin propped on his fist, interjecting with grunts of solidarity, his presence a ballast against the tide. "You're brave as hell," he said when I trailed off. "Putting that on stage? That's armor and vulnerability in one swing. Wish I had half your guts." "Guts?" I snorted. "I'm faking it till curtain call." "Bullshit. Guts is showing up, scars and all." He extended a fist across the gulf. "To showing up." We bumped, the gesture sealing the night, and sleep came merciful, dreams laced with moss and moonlight. Day 2 dawned misty, the peninsula's beauty a balm as we wound toward Tacoma. Detours sustained us. Dungeness crab shacks where we cracked shells and swapped small-town horror stories. A lighthouse at Ruby Beach where waves crashed symphonic. Jake posing dramatically on the driftwood logs. "Call me Captain Angst," until I doubled over laughing. But as Tacoma's industrial sprawl crested the horizon, smokestacks belching against slate skies, the Puyallup River sluggish and silted, tension coiled like a spring. My phone buzzed. Mom's text, "Dinner at 6? Dad's grilling. Bring your appetite." Red heart, no mention of Jake, the college pal I'd name-dropped in vague updates. "Pull over," I asked, voice thin. Jake nodded, easing into a turnout overlooking Commencement Bay, freighters dotting the water like beached whales. "You good?" "Not even close." I exhaled, fogging the window. "They're not bad people, just unequipped. Dad's faith is his anchor. Anything that rocks the boat, he bails." Then we floated gentle. I'm your wingman. Remember? No heroics. Just backup. His steadiness anchored me, and we drove on, the Escape's tires humming a countdown. Home was a modest rancher in North End. Siding faded to the color of old regrets. Mom's impatience blooming defiant in the beds. Dad's pickup squatted in the drive. A Ford F-150 with bumper stickers preaching, "Family first," and "Jesus saves." Mom answered the bell, flour-dusted apron hugging her frame, pulling me into a hug that smelled of rosemary and repression. "Alex, and this must be Jake. Your roommate, right? Come in. Come in. The ribs are marinating." Dad grunted from the grill, tongs flipping meat with military precision, his gaze appraising Jake like a drill sergeant sizing up recruits. "Harlan, eh? Kinesiology? Good field. Builds men." Jake shook his hand firm, diffusing the probe with a grin. "Yes, sir. Hoping to PT after graduation. Help folks get back on their feet." Dinner unfolded in fits. Mom's chatter filling voids, stories of school fundraisers and neighbor feuds. Dad's queries veering safe, sports, studies, that liberal arts nonsense he ribbed me about. Jake charmed effortless, regaling with trail tales, drawing laughs from Mom when he mimicked a sassy squirrel from Ho. But undercurrents swirled. Over pie, apple, lattice crust perfection. Dad's fork paused midair. "Heard about that pride thing up in Seattle. Papers say it's getting rowdy. You involved, son?" The table stilled, air thickening to molasses. Mom's eyes darted, hopeful for deflection. Jake's foot nudged mine under the table. A silent, "I've got you." "Volunteered a bit," I said, pulse thundering. "Handed out flyers. Good people, Dad. Reminds you humanity's bigger than headlines." He grunted, non-committal, but his jaw tightened. A tell I'd learned young. "Just watch yourself. City's a jungle. Don't get lost in the vines." The warning landed barbed, and conversation veered to safer shores. Weather, weddings of distant cousins. Jake picked up the slack, his anecdotes a shield, but as coffee circled, Mom leaned in, voice soft. "We're proud, Alex, whatever path you choose." Her words, earnest and edged with unknowing, cracked me open. Later, as Jake and I washed dishes side by side, him sudsing, me drying, the dam burst. "That was survivable," I whispered, tears pricking. He hip-checked me gentle. "More than. You owned the room." We crashed in my boyhood bedroom, air mattress inflated beside the twin, posters of Broadway ghosts peeling from walls. Sleep was fitful, dreams tangled with grill smoke and unspoken verdicts. Morning brought coffee and a hasty goodbye. Hugs from Mom. A stiff drive safe. From Dad that felt like absolution. Back on I-5, Seattle-bound. Relief ward with residue. "You were a rock," I told Jake, as the Olympics faded astern. "Nah, we both were." He cranked the radio, windows down, wind whipping our hair. But in the dash's glow, his knuckles whitened on the wheel. A storm brewing behind his shades. Little did I know, betrayal's second act waited at home. Mia's machinations metastasizing, conflicts cresting toward a climax that would shatter our fragile equilibrium and test the bonds of truth like never before. The return to Seattle felt like resurfacing after a deep dive. Gasping for the familiar, lungs burning with the residue of depths plumbed. The apartment welcomed us with its clutter. Unopened mail avalanche on the counter. Jake's gym bag fermenting by the door. My script pages scattered like autumn leaves. We unpacked in companionable silence. The road trip's intimacy lingering like cologne. Subtle, seductive, sustaining. "Best detour ever," Jake declared, tossing his duffel into the chaos. "Next one's the Badlands. Or Vegas, your call." I laughed, folding hoodies into drawers that protested the effort. "Vegas? With my luck, we'd end up married to showgirls." He winked, playful peril in his eyes. "Wouldn't be the worst plot twist." The quip landed light, but it hummed beneath my skin. A reminder of lines blurred and boundaries honored. We settled into post-trip routine. Me diving into showcase rehearsals, lines etched in highlighter and highlighter in my veins. Jake acing a practicum, his hands steady on mock injury raps, channeling that Harlan grit into healing. Evenings blurred into movie marathons. Brokeback Mountain one night, his pick. For the scenery, he joked, but his silence during the ending spoke volumes. Thelma and Louise the next, mine, for the getaway vibes. Popcorn kernels crunching underfoot like confetti from our private parade. But Mia's shadow lengthened, creeping insidious. It started with a Facebook unfriending. Mine from a theater group chat, no fanfare, just a digital ghosting that stung disproportionate. Then whispers amplified. A barista at Vivace, my pre-rehearsal ritual spot, leaning over the espresso machine with a pitying smirk. Heard you and Jake are the talk of the hill. Cute, but careful, glass houses, you know? I played dumb, steaming milk and swallowing barbs, but the poison spread, courtesy of Mia's sorority network. Her breakup narrative twisted into tabloid fodder. Jilted girl exposes gay roommate drama. Straight guy caught in queer crossfire. Jake caught wind mid-September, storming home from class with a campus rag clutched in his fist. The Daily, front-page fluff masquerading as journalism. Capitol Hill closet cases? UW roomies spill on summer scandal. No names, but details damning. Beer-soaked confessions? Pride party snubs. A blurry photo of us at the quad, shoulders brushing in unwitting intimacy. Mia's fingerprints smeared every line. Her byline absent but influence blatant. What the actual fuck? Jake hurled the paper onto the table, veins bulging in his neck like rivers in flood. This is her, has to be. Payback for dumping her ass. I scanned the article, nausea roiling. Quotes from anonymous sources painted us as punchline. The straight jock confused by his faggy sidekick. Me as the desperate drama queen pining for validation. Laughter lines blurred with rage, tears hot on my cheeks. It's out. All of it. They'll eat us alive. He paced, a caged panther, fists clenching air. Not on my watch. We fight this, letters to the editor call out the bullshit. You're not some sideshow, Alex. But fight how? The theater department buzzed next rehearsal. Sidelong glances from castmates. My director pulling me aside with a sigh. Darling, focus. Rumors are vultures, they circle, but they don't bite if you don't bleed. Easy for her, tenured and 10 foot tall. I was exposed, raw as a fresh tattoo. Nights turned nocturnal, sleep a casualty. I'd wake to Jake's pacing, floorboards creaking his insomnia, or find him at dawn on the fire escape, nursing black coffee like an antidote. Can't let it win, he'd mutter when I'd join him, our knees knocking in the chill. Dad taught me bullies back down when you stand tall. Tall feels impossible when you're drowning. I'd counter, voice cracking. Then we tread water together. His arm would sling around me, solid as oak, and in those pre-dawn vigils, we'd plot counteroffensives. Anonymous op-eds decrying queerbaiting, ally shout-outs on socials, Jake's first Instagram post. A selfie from Ho, caption truth gossip. Stand with my people. Support trickled, classmates demanding solidarity. A prof emailing resources for media literacy in marginalized narratives. But the toll mounted. My lines faltered on stage. Jake's grades slipped from A- to warning slips. His internship offer rescinded with a curt, cultural fit concerns. Climax brewed in the showcase's shadow, 2 weeks out. A black box theater packed with faculty, funders, friends. My piece, Echoes in the Attic, had evolved. A monologue of fractured coming-outs, attic dust motes dancing like unspoken sins, culminating in a brother's defiant embrace. Jake had read early drafts, his feedback gold. Lean into the quiet. That's where the gut punch lives. He'd promised front row, bouquet in hand, his presence my talisman. Opening night dawned brittle. Seattle's autumn rain lashing windows like judgment. Backstage thrummed. Makeup artists dabbing grease paint, actors murmuring lines like prayers. I paced in character shoes that pinched like guilt, nausea churning. A text from Jake. En route. Kill it. Proud as hell. Anchor dropped. Curtain rose at 8 sharp. House lights dimming to velvet hush. The lineup unfolded. A dance piece on fluid identities. a poetry slam ripping veils from immigrant queerness. My slot hit intermission's end, nerves a live wire. Echoes open stark, single spotlight on a rickety chair, trunk of family heirlooms. Props. Faded photos, a Bible, a rainbow flag folded small. I entered as Alex the character, voice steady through the setup. Tacoma boyhoods, church pew pressures, the attic's isolation chamber. Midway, the hook. And then he said it, the truth I'd armored against. Not with hate, but with hands open, like offering water in the desert. Line delivery cracked open, raw as vein, drawing gasps. Climax built, the imagined betrayal, a father's thunderous rejection. The brothers stand. I'm here, not leaving. We rewrite this together. Applause crashed as I exited. Stage left into shadows, chest heaving. Peeking through the curtain, I scanned for Jake. Front row empty, seat gaping like a missing tooth. Heart plummeted. Back in the green room, phone ablaze. Missed calls from him, a voicemail time-stamped 10 minutes prior. Alex, shit man, it's bad. Mia. She cornered me outside. Posted that article to my folks. Twisted it all. Said I'm in denial. Dragging the family name through deviant dirt. Mom spiraling, little bros getting bullied at school. I had to drive down, Idaho-bound, damage control. Your show's tonight. I'm so sorry. You're a fucking star. Call when. The message cut. Static hissing. Betrayal's blade twisted. Not Jake's, but Mia's orchestration. Puppeteering chaos from afar. She'd struck at his core, weaponizing our truth against his blood. Tears blurred, makeup streaking like war paint. Castmates clapped my back. Brilliant Rivera, oblivious to the implosion. Intermission bled into finale, but I floated disembodied. Jake's absence a void sucking air. Post-curtain call, bows taken to roars. I slipped out a side door into alley rain. The deluge a merciful shroud. Phone in hand, I dialed voicemail again. His sign-off looping, proud as hell. Hours later, soaked to marrow, I trudged home. Apartment echoing hollow. A note on the fridge. Left cash for Ty. Knocking dej. Jay dated yesterday. I sank to the floor, sobs racking. The showcase's triumph ash in my mouth. Alone, truly alone. The weight crushed. Love confessed, support pledged. Now scattered to winds by a woman's wrath. Dawn crept gray, coffee brewing bitter. Texts pinged. Reviews raving. Rivera's raw nerve redefined vulnerability. Friends toasting. But Jake's silence screamed loudest. By noon, resolve hardened. No drowning. I'd surface, script the next act. Little knew, his return would catalyze redemption's arc. Conflicts resolving in fires reforged. Our bond emerging tempered, unbreakable. The week post-showcase stretched taut as a bowstring. Each day a quiver of waiting. Seattle's rains relented sporadically. Sunbreaks gilding puddles like false halos, mocking my internal monsoon. Rehearsal highs crashed into isolation lows. Cast parties I skipped, scripts gathering dust while I doom-scrolled Jake's sparse socials. A repost of a mental health hotline. A selfie from a Boise truck stop, jaw set like he'd bitten steel. No direct word, just radio silence thicker than Idaho fog. Mia's machinations a chasm between us. Campus churned oblivious. Midterms looming, leaves turning the quad to fire, pride's afterglow fading to routine. I threw myself into adjunct gigs, tutoring freshmen in public speaking, voice cracking on enunciation drills like therapy. Project from the diaphragm. I'd coach, demonstrating breaths that steadied my own fraying edges. Nights, the apartment morphed mausoleum. Jake's sneakers by the door a ghost, his Springsteen vinyl untouched on the shelf. I'd curl on the couch, replaying voicemails, dissecting tones for clues. Regret, resolve, ruin, betrayal's anatomy unfolded piecemeal, courtesy of mutuals leaks. Mia had escalated post-dump. Screenshots to Jake's mom of our incriminating pride pic, captions venomous. Your boy's gone full rainbow? Save him. Forwarded to aunts, uncles, the church elder who'd baptized Jake at 12. Fallout cascaded. Mom Harlan's frantic calls. Is it true? Deviants corrupting my boy. Little brother Tate's schoolyard taunts, fag lover, scrawled on his locker. Jake's coach pulling him aside. Focus, Harlan, distractions, off-field, stay off. He'd race south, white-knuckled on I-90, damage control his Sisyphean boulder. A care package arrived Thursday, brown paper, postmarked Boise, no return address. Inside, my favorite sour gummies, a dog-eared copy of The Velvet Rage, queer psych staple, underlined passages on shame's alchemy, and a letter, Jake's scrawl looping urgent. Alex, words fail as usual. This mess? My fault for not firewalling harder. Mia's a hurricane. I should have seen the levees cracking. Families imploding. Mom's popping Xanax like Tic Tacs. Tate's withdrawn, but we're talking. Real talk. First time since Dad. Your show? Bootleg video from a pal. Wrecked me in the best way. That brother's line? That's us. I'm fighting back here, clearing the air. But Seattle's home. You are. Give me till Sunday. Hold the fort. Love, yeah, I said it, platonic thunder, but thunder nonetheless. J. The letter crumpled in my fist, tears salting the ink. Love, casual, seismic, clarifying. Not the eros I'd once hungered for, but agape. Fierce, familial, foundational. It reframed everything. Mia's cruelty a catalyst, exposing fractures for mending. Resolution rippled outward. I texted allies. A group chat for a counter-narrative, anonymous but amplified, reclaiming my story, from gossip to gospel. It went viral on campus feeds, testimonials from queer students, straight voices amplifying. My roommate's my hero, not headline. Jake's repost from Boise ceiling solidarity. Mia's echo chamber deflated, her sorority sisters distancing. Not cool, girl, harassment vibes. Ethan dumping her publicly via a cringy IG story. Sunday evening, the door rattled, keys fumbling. Then Jake, filling the frame like a prodigal son, duffel slung, eyes shadowed but sparking. Rain glistened his jacket, Seattle's baptism. Permission to land? He asked, voice rough as gravel roads. I surged up, pulling him into the foyer, hug crushing the miles between. He smelled of highway and home fries, solidity incarnate. Docs granted. Permanently. We collapsed onto the couch, Thai delivery steaming on the coffee table. Pad CEW, his favorite, my peace offering. Stories spilled like overfilled cups. His Idaho Odyssey. Mom's tearful concession. If he loves you like family, that's blessing enough. Tate's fist bump alliance. You're cool, Jake. Tell Alex hi. A bonfire where extended kin torched the rumors, toasting truth over tribe. My weeks. Showcase acclaim, standing au encore. A prof's mentorship offer. The chat's ripple turning victims to victors. Scared me shitless. He admitted over spring rolls, chopsticks pausing. Leaving you midstorm. Felt like abandoning ship. You didn't. You built the lifeboat. I clinked my fork to his. We're seaworthy. Laughter bubbled. Cathartic. Dissolving remnants. But depth lingered. Mia's final volley. A half-assed apology DM to me. Misunderstanding water under? Ignored into oblivion. We'd report if needed. But victory tasted sweeter self-won. As plates cleared, vulnerability circled back. That letter, I started, cheeks warming. The L word, meant the world. He leaned back, arms draped casual, gaze steady. Meant it, not fireworks and fate love, but the kind that sticks, through scandals, road trips, rainy-ass Tuesdays. You're my person, Alex. Queer, straight, whatever, the labels fade. The loyalty doesn't. Tears pricked, but joy tinged. Ditto. Biggest support? Understatement. You're the goddamn scaffold. We talked till midnight, plotting futures. His grad school apps with my essay edits. My senior thesis, his beta reads. A pact for holidays, alternating families, buffers deployed. No grand gestures, just granular grace. Weekly check-ins, no judgment zones, etched in roommate bylaws. Fall deepened. Seattle's hues umber and ochre. Our bond burnished. One crisp eve, Post-run on the trail, we paused at Golden Gardens, sound lapping pebbles like applause. Jake slung an arm around me, horizon swallowing the sun in molten glory. To summer nights of truth, he toasted with a water bottle. And the supports they build, I echoed, leaning into the weight, warm, unwavering. Life's no tidy denouement. Conflicts linger, betrayals scar, emotions ebb like tides. But in that humanistic heartbeat, amid America's vast, varied tapestry, from Tacoma's mills to Seattle's spires, we found redemption not in perfection, but persistence. Two men, forged in confession's fire, standing taller together. Straight ally, gay heart, labels secondary to the love that lifts, the truth that endures. And in the quiet after, with stars pricking the dusk and waves whispering amen, I knew we'd weather whatever tempests came, unbowed, unbreakable, home in each other's orbit. Epilogue whispers, months later at my thesis defense, a multimedia epic on chosen kin, Jake sat front row, bouquet bursting, wildflowers from hoe symbolic, his cheer louder than thunder. Mia faded to footnote, a lesson in loose ends tied merciful. Families mended slow. My parents' first pride visit tentative but trying, his mom's casserole care packages arriving queer inclusive. Life, dramatic and dear, unfolded scene by scene. Suspense in the pauses, romance in the reaches, emotion in the everyday. And through it all, my straight roommate, biggest support, truest friend, remained the plot twist that saved the story.